It's great to be with you this morning. I brought a few friends with me. They're new friends for me, and probably old friends for some of you. And I'd love, Gia, if you would do me a favor. I hate blocking you with this big thing, so I'm going to have you up the front. Give it up for Cody over here. It's my friend Cody. Cody is actually going to be representing this side of the audience today. So if you're sitting in these two sections, he's going to be representing you. I see a lot of people excited about that, Cody. I see a lot of people excited, yeah. Gia is going to be representing this middle section of the audience. Give it up for Gia. Yeah. Wow. Wow, Gia. It is quite obvious who the favorite is in the room so far. And then Aruna, did I get it right, Aruna?
Yep.
Yeah? Aruna is representing this far left side of the audience. Okay. Wow, that is so impressive. And today we're talking about a theme that is very important here at Grace City. And as Jason mentioned, my name is also Jason, by the way. I come from a great country called Australia. We're not nearly as good at sports as Kiwis are. And so I'm just going to say that right out of the gate. Let's just get it out of the way. You guys dominate us at the moment in a number of sports, and I'm very disappointed by that. But I'm wanting to find out how dominant these three people are when it comes to their knowledge of what it takes to bring up the next gen, okay? Today's topic, or today's message is called From the Ground Up, and it takes a lot of work. Even though Gia is not that tall, it takes a lot of work to get Gia from this tall to this tall, and we're gonna find out just how much work that takes, okay? I've got a few questions for these guys, and this will help kind of connect the dots for you in the audience as to what kind of investment does it look like to actually raise up the next generation from the ground up. So we're gonna play a quick game, Cody, of how many is the name of this game, how many times, and we're gonna have a few categories. The first category is lunches, okay? And so the question for you today is, how many lunches do you think, how many school lunches, let's just narrow it down to school lunches, are packed for the average child by the time they graduate from high school? So think from very young all the way to the time they graduate from high school. And Cody, I imagine, just from looking at you, there was maybe a few extra lunches that were prepared for you. You're a big man. You're a big unit, as we like to call you in Australia. What a unit. How many do you think? That's a lot of years, like 13 years of school. And by the way, audience, if you think you know, you can yell out. Don't use AI to give him the answer, though. What do you think it was? How many?
2,000.
2,000, okay, that's actually pretty close. Dami up the back is actually gonna show us. The answer is 2,400. Cody, nice work. Give it up for Cody. Yeah, okay. All right, Gia, we're gonna switch up the category from lunches prepared to loads of laundry done for the average child from when they were very young through the end of high school. So what do you think? And I'm assuming you didn't have extra loads of laundry. You weren't one of those girls that had like, hey, I'm gonna try this outfit on and I'm just gonna put 4 on the floor before I pick the one that I want. You weren't that kind of, you went with the one that you just had on at the beginning, I'm assuming, right? No, okay, I'm nervous for the answer to this question then. Okay, how many loads do you think it was? Anyone in the audience want to give Gia a little help? They were supportive before, Gia, but they are not now. Go ahead, what do you think? How many do you think it was?
750.
750 loads of laundry between the time you were quite young to 750. That may be per year, but let's find out. Let's find out. How many loads for the average child? The answer is 3,000. Slightly off, Gia. Just slightly off, okay? I feel for those that did all those loads of laundry for you. Yeah. Are they here this morning, by the way, the people that did all those loads of laundry? Okay, that's good, that's good. Okay, all right, Aruna, when we're talking pickups, okay? So think about like being dropped off to school, picked up from school. Did you play any musical instruments?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you play?
Piano.
Piano, okay, so think about piano lessons, pickup, drop-offs, play any sports?
Rugby.
Rugby, okay, drop-offs at rugby. I mean, the list it's getting large, okay? So how many do you think the average child gets over those school years, pick up and drop-offs between school and activities and so on?
4,000.
4,000, you think? Okay, all right, let's find out. Dami, the answer is 5,000. So our winner is Cody, the closest in the competition. Give it up for Cody. Now there are some generations, Cody, where they think everyone should get a trophy at the end. That's not your generation. That's a different generation, I promise. But in case it was your generation, I went ahead and got you each a prize. So Cody, you have a brand new lunchbox, my friend, because you knew how many lunches it takes. And then I think this is going to come in very handy, Gina. Some laundry detergent. You were slightly off by a few thousand, but hopefully that'll help you out. And then I really asked Aruna, I asked Chris if we could get you a car for all those pickup and drop-offs. But Chris and Grace City are very cheap, and so we got you a Hot Wheels instead. There is a yellow Corvette. Congratulations. Hey, give it up for these three. Thank you, guys. You can grab a seat. Weren't they great this morning? Doesn't it take a lot, though, to bring up the next gen from the ground up? It takes a village, right? Not just parents, but also mentors. I think about the people that coached Aruna in rugby. I think about people that gave him piano lessons. I think about all the lunches that were made, school pickups and drop-offs. I think about all the investment that it takes to raise up the next gen from the ground up. And then I think of this value here at Grace City that you guys have, which is this: we invest in the next. And when we say we invest in the next here at Grace City, we're not just talking to parents. So if you're a parent in the room, today's conversation is so important. But if you're not a parent in the room currently, or maybe you were and for whatever reasons you are empty nesters now, like my wife and I, and so you don't have them right around you, every single person in the room, every person watching online, you have a next in your life. It's anyone that's coming after you. They don't have to be biologically related to you, but it's anybody that is coming after you is a next. They don't have to be that young. In fact, I have a few people in my life that if you were to ask them, they would say, hey, I'm investing in Jason because he is my next. And I'm an old man, you can tell. I have no hair, I'm gaining a little bit of extra weight along the way. So you might look at me and go, he's not the next generation, but there is some people that look at me as their next. So I want you to think right now for me, everyone in the room, even if you're watching online, think of who is your next. They may be a child. They may be somebody that you're just in a relationship with. You didn't even think of them as the next until this moment. But they are coming along after you, and they are your next. I want you to think about that person for a moment. And then I'd love for you to do something. This may be a little bit of a stretch for you, but I'd love for you to have that person's name in mind. And then I'm going to give you literally 20, maybe 30 seconds at the most to turn to the person next to you. And I want you to tell that person who is your next. And if you're a young person in the room this morning, like maybe you look up here on the stage and you're like kind of in the demographic of Cody and Gia or Rana, or maybe you're even younger than that, I still think you have a next. You still have a next. In fact, the three of them, check this out, during the 9 o'clock service this morning, they were investing in the next this morning. They weren't here in the auditorium. They were in another room here at Grace City, investing in those that are younger than them. We all have a next. So turn to the person next to you and tell them that name that comes to your mind. Go ahead and do that now. Sounds like some of you have a lot of names that came to your mind. Some of you have like 10 or 15 names possibly. I actually talked to a lady this morning, and when she was telling me about her next, I asked her, who came to your mind after the first service? Who came to your mind that was your next? And she said, well, I have 5 grandchildren, and they all came to my mind all at one time. You can't separate any of them. When it comes to investing in the next, which is what we're talking about in this message today from the ground up, there's a principle that I actually learned from golf that I think will be incredibly helpful for us this morning. Now, I'm actually going to hit some golf balls into the audience today, which made the staff here at Grace City very nervous when I told them that this morning. They were like, I don't think we've put together the risk assessment for that yet. But we're going to do that this morning. And the first one I'm going to hit into the audience is this one here. And I'm going to hopefully hit it into this section of the audience over here that Cody was playing for. So get ready, this section. But when you watch golf on TV, or maybe you go and watch it live, you'll notice that professional golfers do something amateur golfers don't do. I'm an amateur golfer. When I get onto the tee box, here's what I do. I step up onto the tee box and I try to hit the ball as hard as I possibly can, and then I miss it and I hit the tee instead. So I'll hit it as hard as I possibly can. It is foam, and if you could hang on to that, that'd be great. There is a special prize if you catch it, by the way. And so I hit it as hard as I can. But I noticed that professional golfers, when they get up onto the tee box, they don't do that. In fact, I've asked some questions of people that play professionally, and they tell me, when I get onto the tee box, what's actually in my mind is not driving the ball, but it's actually putting. They start as if they're on the green already, and they figure out where do they want to putt the ball from. That's the first thing that comes to their mind, while I, on the other hand, am trying to hit it as hard as I can. Nice catch up the back, by the way. If you could hang on to that, that's going to come in handy later on. I, on the other hand, am hitting it as hard as I can. And when I talk to them, they say to me, not only am I thinking about where I want to be putting from, they'll say to me, Jason, I'm also considering where I want to be chipping onto the green from, because wherever I'm chipping onto the green from is going to help me to get it on the green exactly where I want to be putting from, which means when I step onto the tee box, I'm actually driving the ball from where I want to be chipping from. I'm actually driving the ball from where I want to be chipping from. Here's the principle. Professional golfers, when they step onto the tee box, they begin with the end in mind. I begin by how hard can I hit the ball? I'd like to hit the cover off the ball. But professional golfers start with the end in mind. They begin with the end in mind. And this is a key principle when it comes to investing in the next. We need to begin with the end in mind. My wife and I, we have 3 children. We've raised these 3 children. We oftentimes say that we loved raising our 3 children, and we really love empty nesting. Empty nesters in the room, you all know what I'm talking about. Empty nesting is amazing. We loved raising our children. We really love empty nesting. When our children were small, I remember this season as if it was yesterday. They're now all in their 20s. But I remember back in the day, when they were really young, we had 3 under the age of 4, 4, 2, and newborn, or not under the age of 4, but about 4, 2, and newborn. And I remember some days, the win for us was that they would be bathed, they would be fed by the end of the day, and that they would fall asleep quietly in the evening. And some days it was just enough that they would just fall asleep quietly in the evening. The bathing and the feeding part was optional. But that's sometimes that season of life for some of you. You're laughing, I see a few heads nodding. You're in that season right now. We used to call that the survival years. And that's kind of the time where they're so dependent on you, you're kind of caring for them. Your role is really the carer to make sure they make it through the end of the day. I remember during that season, my wife came up with a little motto for us. When it comes to investing in the next gen, she said it this way: we are not raising kids, we are raising adults. Kristen, my wife, would say it to me over and over again. Remember, Jason, we're raising adults. We're not raising kids. They moved out of that carer stage pretty quickly, and they moved into what we call the cop stage. The cop stage of parenting and investing in the next generation is kind of that, out of preschool kind of age. They're starting to go off to school, or maybe still in preschool, and you're constantly reminding them, don't touch that. Don't go there. Don't hang out with those people. You feel like a cop. You feel like you're policing all the time. You've moved from caring to this cop stage, and eventually they get a little bit older, and all of a sudden they start going off to other activities, and you're not there to police them. They go to school, or they go to some music practice, or they go to some sporting activity, and you just hope that they come back with a positive report from all those people that they are being cared for. And you begin kind of playing the role of a coach, as I call it. You've kind of shown them the boundaries, given them the parameters, and now you're just coaching them and giving them advice, kind of in those middle and high school years, that kind of a season. And now my wife and I, we've moved from carer to cop, from coach. We now call ourselves, the season we're in right now, we call it the consultant stage. And our motto is this: keep your mouth shut and the welcome mat out. When you're asked for advice, you give advice. But consultants don't give advice unless they're asked to. And so we have found ourselves oftentimes slipping back. This is mostly me. My wife is great at this. But I find myself occasionally going from consultant back into coach. And God forbid that I go back to cop, because my 20-year-olds don't like it. But we're all investing in the next gen, and we have different seasons and stages that we invest in them. That person that came to your mind a moment ago and you shared with the person next to you, I'd love for you to think about, when you think of investing in them, what season or stage would you say you're kind of in at the moment? Or maybe you're in 2 seasons or stages with those people at the moment. But I'd love for you to not only tell that person next to you that person's name, but would you do me a favor right now, or maybe you're watching online and you can just drop in the chat, we're in the coaching phase or we're in the caring phase. Turn to the person next to you and tell them, what season or phase are you in with that person right now? Go ahead and share that. All right, let's do a quick review of the room. How many people, when you think of that person, you're in the carer stage right now? Raise your hand if you're in the carer stage. Anyone? Yeah, a few hands. How many people would say you're kind of in that policing or cop stage right now with that person? A couple of people. How many people in the coaching season? More hands, okay, more hands. How many people feel like you're in the consulting season with that person that you had in mind? Okay, a few hands in the room. Here's what's true. My wife would remind me this of not only the fact that we're raising adults, we're not just raising kids, but my wife would remind me of this truth on a regular basis. She would say it this way: if we're not clear on the end goal, Jason, we'll default to whatever feels urgent instead of what's truly important. If we're not clear on the end goal, I remember the end goal was not just to get them into bed. We're raising adults, not just raising kids. And she would remind me, if we're not clear on the end goal, we're just going to default to whatever is urgent instead of what's really important. For me, it was oftentimes I would default to compliance rather than developing their character. I would default to controlling behavior rather than investing in who they were becoming. If we're not clear on the end goal, then we will default to whatever feels urgent, and oftentimes we'll miss what is most important. There's a proverb that I think will help us this morning when it comes to this value here at Grace City that we invest in the next. I think this is a powerful proverb. Some of you may be very familiar with the Proverbs. It's a book of the Old Testament. Some of you may not be familiar with what I'm even describing at all. Maybe you're brand new to church, and like Anthony shared just a moment ago, you've walked in here and you're not even sure what you've walked into. Good news is you've walked into a safe place. We're all on a journey of discovering what it looks like to follow Jesus. And here's what I've discovered along the way of following Jesus. Jesus was actually Jewish to begin with. And so because he was Jewish, the early Christians in the first century, when they started writing letters to each other, which have now become part of our New Testament, the second half of the Bible, these early Christians actually valued the Jewish scriptures because Jesus was Jewish. And so when they came to put the Bible together, they took the Jewish scriptures and they kind of bolted them to the New Testament, the scriptures of the early church, and we now have the Bible. And these proverbs are found in the Old Testament. Fascinating book of the Bible. Even if you're not a church person, even if you're on a journey of faith, you're not sure if Jesus really is who he said he was yet, even if you're trying to figure all of this out, I dare you to read the Proverbs. neatly packaged in 31 little chapters that kind of go along with each day of the month. It'd be fascinating, I think, for you to just take and read through the book of Proverbs in a month. I dare you, I even double dog dare you to take a chance at reading the Proverbs. It's fascinating. In the Proverbs, we read these words in chapter 22 and verse 6. This is what the Proverb says. It says, "Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it." This is a famous proverb. If you've been in church for any length of time, you've probably heard this proverb before. I actually think the problem with this proverb is that many people have taken it and turned it into a promise instead of the principle that it was designed to be. There are many disappointed parents in the world who read this proverb and said, hey, this is a promise from God. If I train up my child in the way they should go, they will stay on that course and they'll never depart from it. And maybe your story is one where you did that, and unfortunately, that promise didn't come to fruition. And I just want to encourage us all this morning as we read this proverb. This is a principle, not a promise. It's not a formula where if you do A and B, your child will equal C. Or if you do this and that for this next in your life, then this is what's going to happen. This is simply a principle, not a promise. A powerful principle, though. And tucked inside of this principle are a couple of key words that I want us to focus on this morning. The first key word is the word train at the beginning of the proverb. It says, train up a child, or train them up in the way they should go. This word train in the Hebrew is actually the word quanak. Can you say that with me this morning on the count of three? You ready? 1, 2, 3. Quanak. That's not bad. You guys are pretty good at Hebrew. Now you can go home this morning and you can say, we learned Hebrew today. Quanak is actually a word that doesn't just mean train. It actually has meanings like initiate or to dedicate. So to initiate a child or to dedicate a child, one of my favorite parts of the definition of this Hebrew word quanak is to awaken a desire or a taste for something in a young child. Immediately when you think of that idea of awakening a taste or awakening a desire, you might have a food that comes to your mind that you introduce to a small child, and you know how it is. You start feeding it to them and they spit out those mushy peas because they're disgusting to them, but you keep introducing it over and over again. Where I was born and raised was in the country of Australia. We have a disgusting spread called Vegemite that the rest of the world wonders why we would eat such a thing. My parents are actually originally from the United States, and so I have two older siblings who were born and raised a short period of time in the US. They can't stand Vegemite. I was born and raised in Australia, and so from an early age, I was given little bits of Vegemite on toast, and it was introduced into my palate. And it awakened kind of a desire and a real liking towards salty things. I love pickles. I love all sorts of salty things. And it's because this desire was awakened in me at a young age. When we think of training up the next gen, that's exactly what this proverb is talking about. Introduce them at an early age to the things of God, that it might awaken a desire in them, that it might awaken a taste in them for the things of God. I love watching here at Grace City, even on the stage this morning, the people that were leading us in worship, many of them much younger than me. I love watching the three that were in the questions kind of quiz this morning, telling me that they spent the morning before this service investing in those that are younger than them. If we want the next to have a passion and a love for things of God and to serve Him, then we've got to introduce these things at an early age and awaken, cultivate a desire for these things from a young age. The other key word that's in this verse, not only the word train, but you notice in the middle of the verse it says to lead them in the way, to lead them in the direction that God has for them, to kind of think about the end in mind, to begin with the end in mind, which is why many times as our kids were growing up, my wife would ask me this question. She would say, Jason, what kind of an adult do we want them to become? What kind of an adult do we sense that God is inviting them to become? What are the things that are naturally we're seeing in their lives that God is pointing? My daughter was a musician and loved to sing, and so it was kind of noticeable to us that perhaps God was raising up a worshiper, somebody that could lead worship through music in our family. What is it that you see that God has planted in the next in your mind? Who is it that God wants them to become? As you think about that, I want to encourage you with a couple of things that I stumbled across in the wrong way, and I put them up here. I said to stop developing the next for convenience and start developing them out of character. I oftentimes would develop the next because it was more convenient to deal with their behavior than it was to actually deal with their character. I would encourage you to stop reacting and start investing. Most of my investment over the years, sorry to say, was quite reactive instead of proactive, and I would encourage you to be more proactive when you think about the next generation. My wife used to say to me all the time, she would say, Jason, if we don't name what we want them to become, it's going to be really difficult for us to aim at it. If we don't name it, then it's going to be hard for us to aim at it. I want to introduce you to our 3 children. I'm going to bring them up on the screen. Here's a photograph of our 3 kids. On the far right-hand side of the picture is my son Xavier. He lives in Sydney. He's about to get married in about 6 weeks from now. In the middle of the photo is my daughter Olivia. Olivia is 22 years old, and she and her husband Jack live on the Sunshine Coast, and that actually was about 18 months ago, the day of her wedding. And then on the far right or far left of your direction is our youngest son, Miles. And unfortunately, Miles is a mini-me. So that means he's going to end up with no hair on his head and a lot of things to work out in life, a lot of things to deal with. So I'm sorry for Miles in that case, but he's a great kid. He's a great kid. When I think about these 3 children, and we talked about as a family, my wife and I, what we wanted them to become, my wife would say, if we don't name it, Jason, it's going to be hard to aim at it. And so we named 3 things that we really desired for them from an early age. The first thing was this: we desired that they would develop a faith of their own, apart from their mom and dad's faith. We wanted them to have a faith of their own, to learn to follow Jesus, and not just have their parents' faith. We wanted them to fall in love with a faith community that they could go and be a part of, and it didn't have to be our faith community as parents. And then the second thing we wanted, not only for them to have a faith of their own, we desired that they would long to be with us even when they didn't have to. We wanted them to come home and to hang out with us as a family, even if they didn't have to because it was Christmas or some other celebration, that they would just want to come and be at home. And then thirdly, we wanted them to long and desire to be together as siblings even when their parents weren't around. That they would want to be in relationship with each other even when mom and dad didn't set it up for them. I'm so grateful. It wasn't a perfect formula, but I'm so grateful by the grace of God, each of them have a faith of their own. None of them go to the church that my wife and I go to, and we love that they've found their own faith community where they're following Jesus in different ways than we do, and I'm thrilled for that. They have a faith of their own. I'm thrilled that they love to come home and spend time with us even when they don't have to. Most of the time because they like using the pantry as their Woolworths, and they just kind of fill up the bags and they go home. It's very cheap grocery shopping when you go to your parents' house. But they love to come home, even when they don't have to. Just a few weeks ago, the 3 of them and their significant others all spent a weekend together down in Tasmania. And my daughter told me just yesterday it was one of her most favorite trips she's ever taken with her 2 brothers and those that they love. Parents weren't involved. We did help finance some of it to make it possible. But we didn't go. We didn't organize it. Olivia, being the daughter and the organizer and the strong one, she organized most of their activities. They had a blast. But we started with the end in mind. We named it because if you don't name it, it's going to be hard to aim at it. So I want to land the plane this morning by just giving you 3 anchors that I think practically will help you when it comes to this idea of awakening a desire inside of the hearts of whoever is next for you. And as I share these three anchors, I'd love for you to consider which of these three anchors is God inviting you to focus on with that name, that next, that you shared with the person next to you earlier. One of the people over here, you caught a ball over here. What word is on your ball? Relational. The first anchor that I want to invite you to consider is to build relational foundations with the next. Here's what the next says. The next don't stay connected to rules, they stay connected to relationships. If you were to ask my three children, of all the people in their life who have had the most significant investment in their life spiritually outside of their family, my oldest son Xavier would tell you the name Chuck. And here's what you need to know about Chuck. For 3 years of Xavier's life in high school, every Sunday after church, Chuck took my son Xavier and 3 other boys to lunch. They never once did a Bible study. They never once went through Alpha together. They never once did any sort of structured reading together, a book or anything like that. But if you were to ask my son Xavier, who's had the most significant investment in your spiritual life, he would tell you it was Chuck. There's nothing wrong with Alpha, nothing wrong with reading a book together with somebody else, nothing wrong with doing Bible studies, all incredibly good things, but the most significant thing is relationship. They stay connected to relationship, not rules. Somebody else in the audience here in the middle got the second one. What's the word on that one? Authentic. Here's what you need to know about the next generation. They want to see an authentic faith modeled by you. You don't have to be perfect. Let me take you off the hook. None of us are perfect. You don't have to be perfect, but they are watching how you follow Jesus. And they want you to model an authentic faith of what it looks like to model Jesus and to follow Jesus on a daily basis. And then finally, on this side of the audience, what was the word? Character. I mentioned this before. Invest in character, not just compliance. Discipline isn't about control. It's about coaching, coming alongside, not just because you want to control behaviors, but because you want to invest in the character of whoever is next. Bring that person's name to mind once again for me, would you? That next in your life. And I want you to imagine for a moment. Imagine if you applied one of these three anchors in your investment with that person. Can you imagine the difference that would make? Look around the room. There are hundreds of people in this room. There are people watching online. Could you imagine if every single name that was thought of this morning had somebody investing in them in what God has desired in their life with that end game in mind? Could you imagine the difference that would make in this community? Not just in this community. Could you imagine the difference that would make in this city? If every one of those next had someone investing in them, imagine the difference. Go with me. Imagine the difference that could make in this country if we all chose to invest in the next. God, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you that you saw fit to leave the comforts of heaven. Thank you that you didn't see it as something to use to your own advantage, but rather you showed us the way by investing in us. Jesus, thanks for leaving the convenience and the comfort of heaven and coming and living amongst us where it's so inconvenient and so uncomfortable so that we could have a relationship with our Heavenly Father. God, I pray that you would help us to do the same. Help us to leave what's convenient. Help us to leave our comfort zone, that we might invest in the next and model for them what living a life after Jesus looks like. God, I pray for every person that's sitting in this room, every person that's watching online now or after the fact. I pray that you'd give us wisdom to know what to do with what we've just heard. And then would you give us the courage with the Holy Spirit to go and do that. I pray this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.